The forest was never quiet after dark. Officer Daniel Cole knew that. But that night, the silence was different, heavy, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. His K9, Shadow, had bolted into the woods minutes earlier, chasing something Daniel hadn't seen. Then came the cry, low, trembling, almost human. Daniel's hand tightened around his flashlight. He called Shadow's name again, but the forest gave nothing back except the sound of something moving just beyond the beam of light. Later, when they reviewed the body cam footage, no one in the department could explain what they saw. If you enjoy gripping true K-style thrillers like this one, quietly hit like and subscribe. It helps bring more stories like these to life. The rain had stopped an hour ago, but the woods behind County Road 12 still dripped like an old wound that wouldn't close. Officer Daniel Cole parked his cruiser at the tree-line, leaving the engine running for the faint hum of warmth it offered. The clock on the dash read 11:47 p.m., and the radio static whispered through the empty frequency. He hadn't planned to patrol this stretch tonight, not after what happened 2 months ago, but dispatch had mentioned strange calls again. Screams, animal noises, a woman crying near the old mill. He reached for his flashlight, then the leash. Shadow, his black German shepherd, sat upright in the passenger seat, ears pricked, tail still, eyes reflecting a gold sheen from the dashboard lights. Daniel gave the command softly. Out! The dog jumped down, landing with a muffled thud on the wet soil. Steam rose faintly from the warm engine behind them, and the wood stood like a wall, dark, breathing, alive. Daniel clicked on the body cam, its red light blinking once before turning solid blue. He had stopped trusting memory since the Jenkins case. Cameras, at least, didn't twist the truth. He walked slowly along the dirt path. Shadow's nose worked in small circles, sniffing the air, the mud, the invisible currents of scent. Somewhere beyond the ridge, a coyote howled, long, mournful, distant. Daniel's hand brushed the radio mic. Unit 34 to dispatch. I'm checking the old mill perimeter. Got movement on thermal, might be an animal. Static hissed. Then a woman's voice cracked through. Copy that, 34. Backup's 20 out. Roger. He released a button and exhaled, feeling the air grow colder the deeper they went. The smell of damp pine needles mixed with something else. Iron, faint but sharp. Blood. He stopped. Shadow did too, tail stiff. The dog's ears rotated forward, and a low growl rippled through its throat. Daniel aimed the flashlight ahead. The beam cut through fog, revealing the jagged skeleton of the old Dufresne mill, half collapsed and overrun with moss. The windows were punched out, and the roof sagged like it had given up decades ago. Something moved behind the frame. Shadow, stay. Daniel raised his gun-like combo, finger resting along the guard, not the trigger. He approached the mill's entrance, boots squelching in the mud. Every sound was amplified. The crunch of gravel, the dog's breathing, the groan of an old sign swinging in the wind. A door creaked open slightly. Daniel froze. He whispered, County Sheriff's Department. If anyone's here, come out slow. No response. Just the dripping of water from the ceiling, and the faint rattle of chains somewhere inside. Shadow whined low. His nose pointed to the far right corner of the structure, where the light didn't reach. Go! Daniel ordered. The dog darted forward, disappearing into darkness. Daniel followed, flashlight bouncing off rusted equipment and broken beams. Then came the sound, a bark, followed by a cry. Not the sharp, alert bark of a trained K9. This one trembled, like pain. Shadow. Daniel's voice cracked as he sprinted toward the sound. His light flickered over the floor, mud, glass, animal tracks, until it caught movement. Shadow was there, near the far wall, tail between his legs, growling at something Daniel couldn't yet see. His ears flattened, his body trembling. What the hell's wrong with you? Daniel whispered, lowering the light. Then he saw it. Half buried in the soil beneath the broken floorboards was a camera tripod. Its metal legs bent, the lens cracked but still faintly blinking red. The recording light. Daniel knelt. The timestamp read February 9th, 2023, 23:08. About 40 minutes ago. Someone had been here recently. Dispatch, he said, voice tight. I've got evidence of a possible trespasser. Camera equipment still active. Possible footage of... Static cut him off again. He frowned, smacked aside the mic. Dispatch, do you copy? Nothing. Just the hiss of interference. Shadow barked suddenly, once loud and sharp. Daniel jerked his head up. The beam of his light swung toward the doorway. A figure stood there. For half a second, Daniel thought it was a person, a woman, pale face, long dark hair hanging wet over her shoulders. Then the figure turned and melted into the trees. Stop. Daniel shouted, lunging forward. He burst through the doorway into the clearing, mud splashing up his legs. The forest swallowed the light as he aimed the flashlight ahead, catching only streaks of motion between the trunks. Shadow barked again and gave chase. Daniel followed, heart hammering. Branches whipped at his face. The cold air burned his lungs. Shadow, stay close. The dog disappeared ahead, barking twice, then once more, and then came a sound that stopped Daniel cold. A cry, not animal, not human, something between the two. A raw, wounded sound that made the hair on his neck rise. He ran faster. The beam swung wildly, catching a flash of the dog's flank, then nothing. Shadow. He reached a small clearing where the fog had thickened into a glowing haze. In the center, Shadow stood rigid, staring down at something half buried in the mud. Daniel approached slowly, gun raised. It was another camera, smaller, handheld, its screen cracked but still faintly showing a frozen image. The timestamp matched the tripod. He knelt beside it, wiped the lens, and pressed playback. The footage began with static, then a dim, shaking light. Someone walking through the same woods. A woman's breathing. Then, through the frame, Daniel saw a man in uniform. His uniform, his cruiser in the background, his own silhouette moving toward the mill. He felt his stomach twist. The footage was live. The camera was still recording. Shadow whimpered and backed away, growling at something behind Daniel. He turned slowly, flashlight trembling. The trees stood motionless. Then, from deep in the dark, came another cry. Fainter this time. Closer. The wind pressed through the pines like a warning. Daniel's flashlight flickered once, twice, then steadied as he turned in a full circle, scanning the tree line. Nothing. No movement. No sound. Except the faint hum of the recording camera still lying in the mud. Shadow stood rigid beside him, for raised, eyes fixed on a patch of darkness between two oaks. Daniel swallowed, then lifted his radio again. Dispatch! This is Unit 34, requesting immediate backup at the Dufresne property. Possible 10 to 37. I repeat, possible. Static. Then, just for a second, a whisper broke through. A woman's voice, faint, distorted. Danny, you shouldn't have come back. Daniel froze. His thumb lifted from the mic. He hadn't heard that name, Danny, in years. He turned toward the woods. Who's there? No answer. Just the wind. He lowered the radio slowly. His pulse thundered in his ears. Maybe it was interference. Maybe. He knelt again by the handheld camera, picked it up, and tucked it into his jacket. Come on, Shadow, he muttered, voice unsteady. We're heading back. But as he turned toward the trail, Shadow didn't move. The dog growled low, stepping backward, eyes fixed on the clearing's edge. Daniel followed his gaze. There was a light, a faint, bluish glow pulsing between the trees. Not flashlight bright, not moonlight. Something softer, like the dim hue of an old CRT screen. Stay, he whispered. He approached the light cautiously, one step at a time, gun raised. The smell hit him first, burnt plastic and damp earth. Then the sound, something electrical humming beneath the soil. When he reached the source, he realized what it was. Another camera, larger, mounted inside a weatherproof casing, wired crudely into a small generator that still sputtered weak sparks. Someone had set up a hidden recording station, aimed directly at the clearing. He crouched down, unplugged the generator, and traced the wire toward a tree where a small metal lockbox hung from a nail. A cable ran from the camera into it. Inside, 4 hard drives, each labeled in red ink. 01, February 2nd. 02, February 5th. 03, February 9th. 04, February 9th copy. The same date as tonight. Daniel's mouth went dry. He pocketed one drive, zipped the lockbox shut, and turned to call it in, when Shadow barked violently, the kind of bark Daniel had only heard twice before, one during a home invasion, and once when they found a body. Daniel sprinted back toward the dog, slipping to the mud, light bouncing. "Shadow, what is it?" The dog stood at the edge of the clearing, facing the mill. His teeth were bared, growl constant. Daniel raised a flashlight and saw someone standing in the mill doorway again, not moving, not breathing. The beam caught a flash of metal in their hand. A knife. Sheriff's Department. Daniel shouted, "Drop it," and stepped forward. No reaction. He took a step closer, gun leveled. "Now!" The figure finally moved, but not toward him. It stepped backward into shadows and vanished behind the wall. Daniel rushed forward, gunlight slicing through the darkness, his boots pounding over the broken boards. He reached the doorway and swung the beam inside. Empty. The same sound of dripping water. The same rotting stench of mildew. Then, footsteps behind him. He spun around, gun raised, only to see Deputy Harris emerge from the woods, panting, shotgun slung over one shoulder. "Jesus, Cole, you scared the hell out of me," Harris said, voice low. "Dispatch said your signal dropped. You okay?" Daniel lowered the weapon slightly, chest still tight. "You took your time. Had to go around the ridge. The bridge is washed out. What the hell are you doing back here? Thought you swore you'd never set foot near this place again." Daniel didn't answer right away. His eyes drifted back toward the clearing. The light from the generator had gone out completely. "I got something," he finally said. "Cameras. 4 of them. Recording all night. Someone's been filming out here for days." Harris frowned. "Filming what?" Daniel hesitated. "Us." Harris squinted, stepping closer. "You mean like hunters or some creep?" "Don't know yet. But whoever it is, they're not far." The deputy exhaled, rubbed his temple. "You still chasing ghosts from that Jenkins mess?" "Because I told you, Danny." Daniel snapped his head around. "Don't call me that." The air between them thickened. Harris studied him, then nodded slowly. "All right." They moved through the mill together, checking corners, scanning the upper level. The boards creaked beneath their weight. Every sound seemed amplified, unnatural. Then Harris noticed a hole in the floorboards, the tripod camera still half buried. He crouched beside it. "Jesus, you weren't kidding. This thing's still warm." Daniel kept his light steady on the corner wall. "It was recording when I got here." Harris looked up. "Recording what?" Daniel hesitated. "Me." Harris frowned. "You're saying it's live?" Daniel pulled out the smaller camera from his jacket. "This one had me on it. Walking up to the mill. Same uniform. Same cruiser in the background. It was recording before I even arrived." Harris's mouth tightened. "That's not possible." "Yeah," Daniel said quietly. "That's what I thought." A silence hung between them, broken only by water dripping from the ceiling. Then from outside, Shadow barked again, short, sharp. Both men froze. Then came a new sound, a woman's voice, distant but clear. Danny stopped filming. Daniel felt the blood drain from his face. Harris looked at him sharply. "Who the hell?" Daniel ran outside, light cutting to the fog, heart hammering. "Where are you?" he shouted. "Show yourself." The voice came again, closer this time. "You shouldn't have come back." Shadow whined, pacing in circles, tail low. Harris stepped out behind Daniel, shotgun raised. "Danny, you're hearing this too, right?" Before Daniel could answer, a faint light blinked to life in the distance. Another camera. He moved toward it slowly, ignoring Harris's calls to stop. Each step brought back a flood of memory he'd buried deep. The same woods, the same fog, the same voice from 2 years ago, when his wife went missing. He had told everyone she drowned in the river. That's what the search team concluded. Her body was never found. But her voice, that voice, was burned into him, and now it was echoing again from the dark. Danny, you lied. He stopped walking. Shadow whimpered behind him. Harris shouted something he didn't hear. The camera stood mounted to a tree, its red light blinking. He reached for it, hand shaking, and pulled the card from its slot. On the tiny screen, the last frame frozen, a woman's face, pale and soaked, eyes wide with fear. His wife. And behind her, Daniel himself, holding the leash, standing in the same clearing. The timestamp. 2 minutes in the future. Daniel stumbled backward, heart racing. He looked toward the mill. Nothing. Then toward Harris, still approaching cautiously. Shotgun lowered. What did you see? Harris demanded. Daniel couldn't answer. His hands trembled violently. We need to leave. Now! Danny, what's on the tape? Daniel's eyes flicked toward him, then toward the fog where the voice had come from. Something that's not supposed to exist. Before Harris could respond, the camera in Daniel's pocket began to beep, rapid, high-pitched. Then the screen flashed white, showing a brief burst of distorted images. A flashlight beam, a hand, a woman's scream, then static. Shadow barked, running toward the mill as if chasing something invisible. Daniel turned to follow, and the forest went black. All the cameras cut off at once. Only Shadow's whimpering filled the dark. Then, out of the silence, a whisper drifted close to Daniel's ear. Soft, trembling, familiar. Danny, the footage isn't yours anymore. Darkness swallowed everything. Daniel couldn't tell if his eyes were open or closed. The air pressed heavy and wet against his face. The smell of pine and rot filled his lungs. His flashlight had died. The radios were dead too. Only the faint click of his body cam told him it was still running. Blinking, recording. He whispered, Shadow? The dog's low growl answered from somewhere close, followed by the crunch of shifting soil. Then footsteps. Danny? It was Harris. His voice wavered like it was coming through water. You good, man? Daniel turned toward the sound. The fog had thickened so much it was like moving through milk. Shapes melted into each other. I lost visual, Daniel said. My light's gone. I got you, Harris said. His flashlight flicked on from a few yards away, a trembling cone of light cutting through the white haze. It caught Harris's face, sweating, eyes darting. Let's move back to the cruiser. Whatever's out here, we'll figure out later. Daniel nodded, forcing his legs to move. Grab the drives. Already got them, Harris said, patting his vest pocket. 4 of them. They started back through the clearing, the light barely enough to trace the old trail. Every step sank into mud with a soft sucking sound. The forest was eerily silent. No crickets, no owls, no wind. Only the faint mechanical click of the body cam. After a few minutes, Daniel realized something. The sound of the body cam wasn't just clicking. It was playing something, a faint, muffled voice looped under static. He touched the earpiece. You hear that? Harris frowned. Hear what? Daniel stopped walking. The voice grew louder. You lied to me, Danny. He turned slowly toward the sound. The body cam's light flickered once, and for a split second he saw it, a woman's reflection in the small lens, staring back at him through the camera's faint glow. His breath caught. Sarah, Harris froze. What? Daniel didn't answer. He tore the camera off his vest and pointed it toward the trees. The light blinked, glitching between red and blue. Then the footage jumped, showing not the forest ahead, but the same clearing, filmed from somewhere behind him. And in that footage, Daniel and Harris were both standing exactly as they were now. Except in the video, something else stood between them. A dark shape, a woman, head tilted, face obscured by dripping hair. Jesus Christ, Harris whispered, taking a step back. What is that? Daniel's voice cracked. That's my wife. The figure in the footage slowly lifted its head, and the camera began to distort, lines tearing across the screen, sound garbled by static. Through the noise, Daniel could barely make out words. You promised to tell the truth. Then the screen went black. They ran, through the fog, through the mud, through the suffocating dark that seemed to move with them. Harris shouted into his dead radio, calling for backup, for anyone. Daniel clutched the drives tight against his chest. Shadow barked, darting between them, until suddenly he wasn't barking anymore. Daniel turned. Shadow. No sound. No movement. Shadow, he screamed, voice breaking. He spun in circles, flashlight trembling. Harris grabbed his arm. Forget it, Danny. He'll find his way out. But Daniel shook him off, tears cutting through the grime on his face. You don't leave family behind. He ran back toward the sound of the river, shouting the dog's name. The fog parted briefly, revealing the edge of the mill pond. Moonlight rippled across the black water. That's when he saw it. Shadow's collar, floating near the surface. He waded in, ignoring the cold, searching with his hands. The water reached his waist, then his chest. Come on, boy. Something brushed his leg. He flinched, and then his fingers closed around something else. Not fur. Plastic. A waterproof case. He lifted it from the water, gasping. Inside, another hard drive, labeled in the same red ink. 05, February 9th, final. He opened it with trembling hands. A small screen inside flickered to life automatically. And there he was, Daniel, standing knee-deep in the same water, holding the same case. But behind him, in the footage, stood Harris, raising his shotgun. Daniel blinked, breath hitching. What the hell? He turned slowly toward the real Harris. The deputy's expression had changed. Gone was the nervous friend from earlier. His jaw was tight, eyes cold. Put the drive down, Danny. What? You weren't supposed to find that one. Daniel stepped back, water rippling. You set me up? Harris exhaled, voice flat. You think they ever bought your story? About Sarah drowning? About you searching for weeks, coming up empty? Daniel's chest constricted. You don't know what happened that night. Oh, I do, Harris said quietly, stepping closer. I saw the footage before anyone else. You just didn't know the cameras were running. Daniel's throat tightened. You're lying. You killed her, Harris whispered. And now you're trying to rewrite it. You thought the body cam glitched that night? It didn't. It recorded everything. You dumping her car, dragging her into the river. You begging her to stop screaming. Daniel's knees nearly buckled. I didn't mean to. She was going to leave you, Harris said, voice almost gentle. You snapped, and then you blamed the river. You blamed fate. Daniel shook his head violently. No, you don't get it. It wasn't me that. A sound cut through him. A soft, wet cry from the tree lean. Both men turned. Shadow stood there, muddy, limping but alive. And beside him, half in shadow, half in moonlight, stood Sarah. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. Her hand rested on the dog's head. Daniel's gun slipped from his grip. Sarah, Harris whispered, Jesus Christ. The fog curled around her feet as she stepped closer. You kept filming, she said softly, even after I begged you to stop. Daniel's lip trembled. I wanted proof. I wanted them to know you were. She cut him off. You wanted control. He fell to his knees. Please. The water around him began to ripple outward, glowing faintly blue, the same hue as the cameras. Sarah looked down at the floating drive, still clutched in his hand. That belongs to me now. She reached out. The drive blinked once, twice. Then the light inside it went out completely. Harris dropped his shotgun, backing away in disbelief. This isn't real, he muttered. This can't be real. Sarah's eyes met his. You helped him bury me. Harris froze. I. A surge of wind tore through the clearing. The cameras around the mill sparked to life all at once, red lights flashing in unison. Every angle captured the same scene. Sarah standing, Daniel kneeling, Harris trembling. Then the footage glitched again, reversing, repeating, rewinding. Each loop fainter, until only static remained. When the sun rose over County Road 12, only one cruiser sat by the tree lean. The dash cam was still recording. In its frame, an empty clearing, mist rising, the faint sound of water lapping against stone. No Daniel. No Harris. Only Shadow, sitting quietly by the mill's entrance, staring at the woods. Hours later, When the search team found him, the dog wouldn't move from that spot. His collar camera was still running, its footage perfectly clear. It showed nothing supernatural. No ghost, no figures, no light. Just Daniel, alone, walking into the pond with a drive in his hands, whispering, "I'm sorry," then disappearing beneath the surface. The file labeled final was never recovered. But weeks later, during a standard review, the body cam footage surfaced on a corrupted server. The last frame showed a woman's hand touching the lens, her voice soft and certain. Truth always records itself, Danny. Then silence,